Do you guys smell that? Oh, it smells good. Do you smell that? Yeah. It's a new, fresh version of Cinnamon Desktop, version 2.6. Now, I wonder if Clem hates it when Michael Larbel does this, when he pre-announces. I got to imagine if you've worked months and months on something and you want to make a big announcement and you want to drive people to your blog with screenshots and bullet points, do you hate it when old Larbel here is watching your GitHub page, or maybe he's just watching his forums, but whatever he's watching? Cinnamon 2.6 update was just tagged. The release version was just tagged on GitHub for Cinnamon. And it's a significant update. This one bakes in systemd support, which is pretty nice. Panel support for multiple monitors, which my wife would kill for. And support for client-side decorations, which is becoming more and more common. I'm looking right here at Polari, which is a great IRC client off on my other screen. It needs client-side decorations. TweetBird, client-side decorations. So those wanting to grab Cinnamon 2.6, guess what? You got to wait. Clem will have an update for you soon on the blog, but in the meantime, packages are going to be hitting probably Arch and Linux Mint very soon, and then the other distros. I have a question for the Mumble Room guys. I don't know. I mean, there's obviously you could just get Linux Mint Cinnamon Edition, but for some reason, doesn't like Fedora and Cinnamon sound like a super tasty combination? Does that sound appealing to you guys?
Yeah. I guess. If you're
really
that whole thing. Yeah. So I have my own preconceptions of Fedora, I guess. From the times I've used it, and I have my own preconceptions of Cinnamon. And I think that although they might complement each other, they might complement each other in the worst way I could think of.
Oh, lay it down. What do you mean? Give me your wisdom. Share it.
I know. So whenever I've ever touched Cinnamon, it's great. It's a wonderful feeling desktop, and a lot of people love that.
It has a great personality.
I want to get that out first.
Okay.
Yeah, it has a great personality. But the way it acts drives me insane. It chews up so much RAM.
Yeah.
It's crashy.
Well, yeah.
At least when I use it, I'll put that in front of it.
Well, I'll give you this.
Maybe other people.
It actually has been a little crashy for me too, and a little memory hungry. But if I'm okay with restarting it, and it's real easy to restart the Cinnamon desktop, it seems to be okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the same thing. Same thing with Fedora. Kind of, seems to have some great stuff, but a little bit crashy, a little bit odd things happen, really weird times.
Wow. Ryan, what do you think? Ryan, do you want to defend Fedora there, or were you just clicking your mic open?
I was just accidentally clicking my mic open.
Oh, I thought maybe you were so passionate. You were going to go down on the mat for Fedora, but no. No, that's not the case. I actually see. Here's the thing. Here's why I said Fedora and Cinnamon, and I'm not saying it's there right now. Fedora 22 could be one of the first versions of Fedora. Maybe, we don't know yet at this point. That ships with like a really easy to get going with Cinnamon setup, and I starting with Fedora 21, I feel like they crossed into holy crap. This is like a legitimate, useful desktop, and there's things out there like FedUp and Fedora Tweak and things like this that make it more usable, but or Corora really. It's getting there though. It's really, really, really getting there. And while Ubuntu goes through this awkward transition where they're going to do Unity next, and they're going to go to Snappy packages, and they're going to go to QML and Qt for their desktop, and they're going to converge everything, it's really nice to think that, boy, there's this Red Hat-backed distribution. Red Hat that makes all those billions and has actual sway in the market. There's this Red Hat-backed distribution out there that could have Cinnamon and GNOME. And GNOME is going to be the premier desktop. Cinnamon's going to be a pretty solid choice, and Corora is going to work on a KDE version for you. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to look at Fedora, and I'm thinking, boy, if they just had a few more months of support, or the community stepped it up like they used to do back in the day. Here's where I'm at, guys, and we're going to talk about this more in the show. This week, I had a come-to-Jesus moment with Ubuntu, and I said, get it off this machine. I'm not going to do this sounds like I'm being a diva, but I'll explain more in the show. I'm not going to do another episode until Ubuntu is removed off this computer. And I said, check my contract. There's a clause in there. And Rikai came down here between Tech Talk Today and Linux Unplugged and installed Entergross with GNOME 3. And on a System76 Meerkat, I'm going to give you all the details on why that is. But I look at this and I think we need another solution out there. And for me, it cannot be Ubuntu 14.04. It's not a usable solution. I'll explain more why later. And now what am I going to do? So my default is I went to Arch. This is a daily media production computer. I do a daily show, and then I have another show later in the day, every single day. I don't know if I'm comfortable with it being Arch. So far, it's been more reliable, and so that's where I'm at. But I'm not so sure that's a solid statement on the state of Linux for media production. So now I'm looking at Fedora, and I'm thinking maybe there's an opportunity there if some of these things are addressed. So I'm really excited about Fedora 22. I'm watching it very closely because my expectations and my needs from a competently backed Linux distribution are beginning to change. And so Fedora could fill that role pretty well.
Can I chime in for a second?
Go.
That's actually why I started talking to Ike and getting interested in Solus, because I was hoping to help build a distribution that I felt could actually not piss me off constantly. And I hate to say that because I was a firm Ubuntu user for a really long time and I loved it. And then with every single new release, I was actually okay with Unity and everything, but after 12.04, it seemed like every new release, I was having more and more issues that I was like, I haven't had these issues with, some other distributions. I don't understand why this is supposed to be so stable when I'm having these problems. And somebody was just telling me the other day about they tried to do an upgrade. They didn't have any extra, crap on their machine, no extra repos. They tried to do a straight upgrade and it broke something. And I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. Since you've said that, I've never had an upgrade that has just worked under Ubuntu. And
I guess I just feel like there is a market opportunity for somebody to come forward and say, established Linux users, we're not going out to new Linux users, people that are professionals, people that are experts, established longtime Linux users. Fedora has an opportunity to step up and say, let us be your premier desktop platform. And wouldn't that be great for Red Hat, too? Because then that naturally would then sort of channel those people into using things like Red Hat and CentOS on their cloud installations, on their deployments at work. Like, it fundamentally is like planting the seeds to grow Red Hat's enterprise business by becoming the champion on the desktop. The fact that they bailed on it years ago, I was always shocked by that, because that seemed like such an obvious connection. And it's clearly one of the things that's helped Ubuntu dominate Amazon and DigitalOcean and Rackspace, right? One of the reasons Ubuntu does that is because a lot of those people are developing on an Ubuntu workstation too. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
Red Hat blew it when they pulled the plug and said, we'll let the community do it. But you know what? Turns out now Ubuntu's blowing it, right? And I'm not saying blowing it like they're making all these horrible mistakes and they're going to destroy everything. I'm saying blowing it like they're not paying attention for a few years, and they could very potentially be working on maybe the most kick-ass desktop eventually. If they really pulled everything off and they had all these Snap stuff and this transactional base update and they had everything that was converged and this great SDK for developers writing for Linux to target, like if they really pull all of that off, maybe it's the most badass Linux desktop. In the meantime, though, it's a hot mess and it's a transition. And so there is an opportunity for Fedora to be like, hey, you know what? Longtime Linux users, you want something you can rely on, you want something great, you want something that's taking advantage of the latest open source. Fedora's already known for all of that stuff. It just seems so perfect for them to just slip right in there and be that next spot everybody jumps to. Because it's not going to take like this huge rebranding, like it would take a massive rebranding for Mandriva. Nobody takes OpenSUSE serious enough on that scale, so that's not going to happen. And there's all these other distros out there like Arch or all of the other distros that are really great like Elementary, but they just don't have the momentum or the approachability that something like Fedora does. And Fedora has the great interface. They have a good installer now. They have a great community. They have fantastic documentation. They have Red Hat behind them. They just are not executing this. And I don't know what that barrier is. Maybe it's impossible, but it just, I think I want it to be them. When it came time to reload this machine, I guess it's Arch, because I can't think of what else is going to work better. And that is, to me, that's not a state of how awesome Arch is. That's not Chris being an Arch fanboy, because I didn't make that decision out of a point of fanboyism or out of evangelism. I made that out of I guess it's that or Windows, and I don't want to do Windows. And so do Arch. I didn't do it because, let's do another machine with Arch. I mean, Arch is great, but it doesn't feel like a rolling distribution doesn't feel like the solution for a machine that's supposed to do audio and video calls all day long. Like, that doesn't feel like the right solution for that. But you know what? And I went with an LTS, and it blew up so bad. I not only had to delay one show by an hour and a half on Sunday, I had to completely forgo doing another show. So I have damaged 2 shows, directly impacted my work and my business because of Ubuntu LTS's flakiness. So I had to bail on that, and my other option is Windows. And I think why isn't Fedora the answer here? Something modern, something that gives me the latest packages, so I have the latest audio-visual stack, I can get the latest Mumble clients, something where CentOS can't deliver on that. Why isn't Fedora already in this position? And it seems bad. It seems baffling to me, because if they could completely dominate this, then it seems like people would naturally slide into the cloud stuff. All right, I've made my point. I'm rant done. It's just I'm desperate for them to do it.
I know. It's like you're saying this. And it's like, I know you listed a lot of things. You didn't touch Debian. You didn't touch... there was another one I had listed. I'm just trying to think of the main distros. Just ones you might want to think of in the future. Give it a shot. Because I know people are just like, Debian. It's like, people have this kind of predisposition of, it's slow and it's old.
No, Debian's a great distribution, right? What's the company behind Debian that can make people in the market do what they say?
And also,
what's the company that could write $1 million check to NVIDIA one day? I don't know of one. Right? You need to have an organization that has some pull in the industry. You need to have an organization that can write a check from time to time. You just need to have an organization that maybe could fly a few people in every now and then to talk about stuff. Like, these distros are great, but they can't even do that. It has to be a distro that from time to time could afford to fly a developer in. That we need to be able to start at that level.
They do have that. They do have that. There are like, just because something is kind of a volunteer organization does not mean they don't have money for that. You know, Exorg and all these other people put out tons of money every year to do this.
You're right,
in fact,
that's why.
More than
that's
others.
right. That's why there's so many Debian-based OEMs out there. That's why there's so many hardware partners that.
There are.
No. There are companies out there that use Debian, and because those companies use Debian, they create a contract with a manufacturer to write some code. But there's a complete difference. There's a total difference in a company like Valve contacting a group like Canonical and working with their developers and working through their organizational structure, and then a foundation that has some volunteers that gets some money that has about $2,000 to spend from time to time to fly people around. I mean, I'm not saying that's not great. It is super great, and I'm very, 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 very glad we have it, but it is a totally different level than what you need to be if you're going to actually be a premier platform provider. And it's for the desktop in this marketplace today with the market conditions. And I'm not saying that demotes what Debian is, because Debian's an amazing distribution that so many things are built off, and it was what I really discovered Linux around when I put it on servers. I mean, it's a very great distribution, but it can't be it can't be Ubuntu. It can't be Ubuntu on the desktop. It's not backed by an organization like Red Hat, and that makes a huge difference. I feel like Red Hat kind of screwed us. I feel like Red Hat screwed us, basically. I feel like they bailed on us and screwed us.
Yeah, Red Hat has the resources, what you're talking about. They have a lot of resources. They're not a poor organization. And so it is frustrating when you see them, they have this blue-headed stepchild that they've had forever. And granted, they're putting more into it now, and they're making it better, but it's still got a ways to go, and it is frustrating coming from what is many would consider to be a flagship Linux company. So I'm there with you.
I think SteamOS might have been a bad idea to use as an example for that.
Go ahead.
I mean, because it is Debian-based. Just because, Debian isn't working specifically with any vendor doesn't mean that there aren't, vendors going in and taking their software and using it. That's kind of the spirit of open source.
Debian's the place you want to go if you want to find the core developers, the people inside Linux. But if you want to get out and pull people in, it's not the place to go.
I feel so let down. I guess why I'm upset is I feel really let down.
Did you try PC Linux?
Yeah, How many more things should I try? God, it's just, it's such a bummer. It's such a bummer because I've just, I don't know. I try to get people to switch to Linux all the time, and I advocate the platform all the time, and then I try to use it, and it just fails for me, and it's just so frustrating.
Oh.
I mean, those of you who didn't watch the Tech Talk, it was just such a joke. Like, so just a real quick, like, total, like, abbreviated. Like, I don't even know. So I restarted the machine this morning, and when it came back up, all of the 2 USB sound cards that I have were only listed as input or as output devices, not available as input devices. Of course, one needs to be input and one needs to be output. One's the mic in, one's the mic out. Pretty obvious. So for some reason, all of this. So not only did the sound devices change the labeling, so the label of the sound devices changed, so they're actually mislabeled, that it reverses them, but there's only 2 of them, so I can figure that out within about 5 seconds, and I've gotten used to that. It doesn't even bother me anymore, but it's odd that it happens after every single freaking reboot. So I get used to which sound devices have swapped the names, and then now this time I discovered that they're only listed as output devices, not listed as input devices. Okay, well, you know what? The Mumble Room, they're pretty flexible. They just need to be able to hear me, and I have a show I need to do. It is now after 9 o'clock, so I'm already late. So I finally figure out nothing I'm gonna be able to do about this. I try plugging, unplugging, powering off, powering on. Nothing happens. I'm not really totally invested in it because I'm also trying to prepare a show and I'm on the live stream. But whatever. I see that the monitor webcam mic in is showing up. I have the mic in on the sound card, which is ironic because the NUC actually only has audio out, but it shows audio in from the sound card, and the USB webcam audio on the built-in webcam on the monitor. So I figure, well, the Mumble Room could probably stand to just listen to me on the webcam microphone. Even though it's about 4 feet away from me, they'll be able to hear me. And because I can still control audio out, I'll still be able to hear them and record it. Now, think about this. Think about where I'm at right now. Before, I'm trying to do a daily show, and this is what I'm reduced to because this is just randomly falling apart from a reboot. Oh, but okay. I'll choose the webcam audio. Not a big deal. I can roll with the punches and troubleshoot afterwards. Yeah, I have another show to work on. But you know what? I'd like to spend an hour of my day troubleshooting this again, even though I just spent 2 hours of Sunday troubleshooting this. Oh, fine. So I choose webcam audio. And this is, mind you, because I've had so many issues, I'm doing cold boots now. So I've done another cold restart, figured out which USB device is labeled as what, made sure I have the correct input and output. And the only thing I've opened to this point is the sound settings control panel, or system settings, whatever. And I can see audio input when I talk from the webcam. Great. So I close that. I open up Mumble. No audio. Well, I go check the audio settings. It's set to pulse default. Well, pulse audio in is my webcam. Pulse out is the correct audio out sound card. Because, again, audio out's the only thing I control in that setting. Well, it doesn't work. So I close Mumble. I open up the sound settings. Well, I see levels when I talk. Why doesn't Mumble hear anything? So I close the sound settings. I open up Skype. I do a Skype call test. Oh, Skype hears me just fine. Skype can hear the audio. So I close that. I open up Sound Recorder. I record me talking. Sound Recorder records me just fine. I reopen up Mumble. No audio. No audio. Why? Don't know. I have now run into a completely new bug in Mumble. Completely unrelated, apparently, to the other bugs that I've been having. So I have to now close Mumble, turn the computer off, boot the computer back up, now figure out which USB device has been labeled as which, set them as my audio input and output devices, and now open up Mumble, changing absolutely nothing else, and the audio works just fine. So somehow I get through the show, and at the end of the show, we decide, got to take Ubuntu off here. This is just not working anymore. This is just not usable. I don't know why it's working like that. It is an Intel NUC. It is Ubuntu 14.04. It has had I've tried it with updates installed and not updates. I have done updates because I thought it can't get any worse, and then that's when the mislabeling thing started to happen. It got worse. So I just don't know what to do at this point. Like I have had people look at it. I have troubleshooted. I don't know what else can be done other than to replace the operating system, and I am baffled as to why it happens. But it is unusable.
I have an idea as to why it's happening. It's unacceptable. I agree. So it sounds exactly like a UDEV pinning problem, and it's been outlined, and it's something that Ubuntu's apparently looking at changing, because Ubuntu, so UDEV has 2 options, right? It can go and assign just basically whatever device comes up first when the kernel goes and finds it, right? And that's what it assigns a first device. And that's why it assigns ETH0 and ETH1 and all these other things. And that's why these can flip randomly, it seems like. Now, you can do a kind of a pinning process of, okay, when this one comes up, I want this one to always be ETH0, or I want this sound card to always be, Audio 0, or, what have you. And Ubuntu doesn't have that, basically, that little switch flicked. And it's become more of a problem now. I believe Fedora does actually flip because I've done this, and it is a real problem. I've personally had this problem with Nix, where I've done it as to per ETH0. These are the settings for ETH0.
Yeah.
And then I reboot, and everything's fine. Everything.
Yeah, that's awful.
I understand your pain, and I understand where you're coming from with the Red Hat thing. Because there's not someone I can call, or I can talk to, or that I know has covered this situation. And Debian, I guess, isn't that perfect one, because they're going to have their own philosophical ideas on how things should work, and maybe that should be up to them. Red Hat will be more about thinking, I'm selling this thing, I need it to be just like this. I kind of understand that feeling.
Yeah, I don't. And it's so and some things about being in media production exacerbate it a little bit, because I have something that some people don't have is I have a USB 3 HDMI video capture device, and if I open up Jitsi and then close Jitsi and want to open up Skype, Video for Linux will not release the video capture device from Jitsi. So I have to reboot the machine in order to release the video capture device, so that way I can then open up Skype and have video. Well, that then, if you have any kind of problem with the audio issue, that then exasperates that issue, right? Whereas in a normal Linux system, you probably wouldn't be rebooting as frequently as I am, so you don't run into it every single episode like I do. So there's things that just compound on top of it that make it worse than what normal people run into. Like a lot of people aren't having to change their audio interfaces very often. That's just not something they ever touch, right? But here, it's something we change from time to time, and rebooting is something we do occasionally, and I try to minimize I try to make it work so bad, and it's just I feel so defeated when I've now had I've lost 3 days of work to this problem.
Man, I still recommend giving OpenSUSE a try. I've never really been much of a fan of Fedora, other than, testing a few things here and there. But I always say, OpenSUSE still has the release model. It has stable upgrades. It's got server. You can sue it. It's got a company backed with millions of dollars behind it that you can, send developers around. They've got
Which company is it this year? They change companies so often I can't keep it straight.
I'll just say no.
Yeah.
But just give it a try.
No, I used to be an OpenSUSE user. I used to.
Me too. You know why the OpenSUSE movement died? Ubuntu. Their PR is magical. They roll over anything.
No, they just takes it's nothing to do with PR. Ubuntu's a better product.
They're
That's
good
why.
at it.
No, Ubuntu's a better product. That's why Ubuntu took over.
Oh no.
Okay.
If it was a better product, I would have been using it.
No, it's a better product for more people.
Really?
I think it's a better product for more people.
Right, you're the single arbiter of what is really bad in the Linux community.
Oh yeah. Ubuntu's friggin' lost my friggin' vote a long time ago. Give it a try, man.
You're telling me like I've never tried it before. I just ran whatever 13.2 or whatever it was. I mean,
Other than in a VM.
No, I had it on a Bonobo.
So, Chris.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you could switch to another distro, and maybe that sound problem will go away. Maybe it'll go away like today. Maybe it'll go away for the next 6 months,
and then come back.
But something else will come and bite you. Whether it's I can't update my Java install, which is required by something else, or I can't update my browser, or there's some problem when I plug in USB devices that causes it to reboot.
That would be an issue. But aside from that USB one, none of them would stop me from doing a show, though. Right? That's what gets me.
No, but no distro is perfect, and I'm not saying we are.
Right? No, I agree.
They all have their own individual issues, and I I get this a lot at Linux user groups where people will install a distro, and it doesn't really matter which one it is. They'll install a distro and something won't work. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's the video card or their wacky mouse or whatever. And so the solution to that is not work out what the problem is, but it's, wipe it and put a different distro on. And when eventually they'll find one that they're happy with, for whatever measure of happy that is, and then you can check the mailing list, and 6 months later they'll have flipped to something else because something else pissed them off. Or they might last a year, they might last 18 months, or they might be happy on an LTS release of some distro, or they might be on Debian stable and nothing changes and there's cobwebs everywhere, but it's all holding together and everything's fine. But someday something will fuck up and they'll get just as pissed off again.
Yeah, I suppose what's ironic is, in a way, if I could have booted up and realized, oh no, this update has made my audio way worse, if I could have rebooted again back into the old system state, that would have been very nice. Like some sort of transactional update where I could just roll back. Because if I could have rolled back, it could have been manageable had it not been all of the other issues compounded by the latest updates. And I was hoping the latest updates would make things a little better, because I figured it's already busted, can't get much worse, got way worse.
And don't get me wrong, I feel your pain. When something goes wrong and I just want to throw a laptop out of a window, that frustration, especially when you have a deadline and you've got something to do, that it is the worst feeling in the world when you're fighting against, and you feel that it feels like the computer is fighting against you. It's a horrible feeling.
It is indeed. Heller, go ahead. You wanted to make, I think, what is going to be a fantastic point. That was your line. That was your cue, man. You were supposed to own that.
Like I said, the most stable distro I've ever used on my Lenovo laptop has been Arch proper. I've gone through Mint, Fedora, Ubuntu, and Debian, and all of them, they've all come with something that but most of it's been graphics. It does have an Optimus NVIDIA card in it, so I've had that issue. But the biggest strong point I can make for Arch is the fact that gaming on Arch and Steam and everything on this Lenovo that I have has been phenomenal compared to the other distros. I'm not busting them down.
I don't know.
I use them for other things.
One of the things that really bugged me about the Ubuntu Snappy personal, I can't remember what it's called when it was announced that Ubuntu Next is going to be based on Ubuntu Snappy. One of the headlines that went around a lot, there's a lot of different versions of it, but one of the ones that went around a lot is Ubuntu is setting out to make Linux more stable. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? Because when you tell users things are more stable, they think, does the program crash on you? Does the operating system lock up? But actually, if I could have rolled this system back and had a more functional system, that would have been my definition of stable for a production machine. And in a way, initially the reaction to the Ubuntu Snappy release is, oh, isn't that quaint? They're taking a tar.gz file, they're decompressing it to a partition, and they're updating the bootloader, and they're booting off that new partition, and if it doesn't work, you boot back to the old partition. That's very adorable. And then we just sort of dismiss it as, oh yeah, that's transactional. But really, that's all it would have taken to fix my entire problem today, to solve two shows' problems, and I would have considered that more stable. And so what Canonical and Ubuntu are saying really is, hey, this entire way we've been updating our computers this entire time, that's just inherently not all that stable. And there's just not really a way we're going to make that better. It turns out the way software's built, the way Linux is built, where one group is working on Pulse Audio and one group is working on Video for Linux and one group is working on this and the other group is working on that, turns out not really a great way to just ship that in individual updates like that. So we're going to do these in these big snapshot updates, and you just roll back if it doesn't work. And sorry, everybody else, you can keep doing it the way you're doing it, but we don't think that's a good way to go anymore. I think they might be onto something, because there has been a huge problem, not just in a situation like I had, what I ran into, but if you look at how successful vulnerabilities like Heartbleed were, it was because people hadn't been updating their systems, their OpenSSL installation, or the PlayStation Network. Remember when Sony got hacked years ago, back at the start of TechSnap? they got hacked because they didn't update their Apache servers. Right? You've all been in enterprises. You guys all have seen, I mean, most of you probably, if you've worked in any company at all, have seen some super old installations of software because there is a certain roll of the dice when you update that software. And a lot of businesses are more willing to bank on the risk than they are willing to bank on the almost certain problems of updates. And so there were documents from the more recent Sony hack, the Sony Entertainment Pictures hack, the more current one with the whole interview movie. There's documents from that where their CTO clearly says, their chief technology officer clearly says, it is cheaper for us to run the risk than it is for us to mitigate and fix it. And part of that is because Linux is a huge part of these infrastructures. And it's not the Linux kernel's fault, but Linux distributions are not super great at updates. Even ones like Red Hat Enterprise. They're not super great at it. Stuff breaks. And Windows isn't super great at it either, and neither is Mac OS X and, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, nobody's super great at it. But we did get better at it with the mobiles, didn't we? So, I don't know. So we were a little, in 92, we were a little like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea, but it's a little quaint. And now after having lived this last couple of days on an Ubuntu system, I'm thinking, if this was a year down the road or whatever it's going to be, and this was a transactionally updated system, I wouldn't have had this problem.
So what I kind of take from this is it might very well be like, the Ubuntu's contribution, to Linux, Red Hat's contribution system, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe that will be a good solution. It'll bring its own problems, but I guess the nice thing about this whole thing is we might have a solution coming at Ubuntu. And what's even better is it's not going to be the only way to do it. So you'll be able to get your perfect system where you just update good chunks, and the Arch people will be able to update everything transactionally in their own with using Pacman. And I kind of think that all these problems aren't going to go away. I think it's just going to become there's a solution to it. This is your solution over here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's only so much you can do when humans are continuing to make the software until the computers take over. Yeah. I think that's what we're going to have to do. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Yeah. So, anyway, so our end solution was Antigros, and because I just wasn't sure if Arch was a great idea for this machine, even though every time I put Arch in production, I've been happy with it, I still, I think because I spent so many years in the enterprise IT area deploying Red Hat and SUSE Enterprise, like, to me, I cannot get over that bias. Like, it seems I cannot get over it. So, like, putting Arch in here seemed like such a big risk to me that we're running this on the System76 Meerkat, and the original NUC is still sitting right next to it with the Ubuntu Mate 14.04 install ready to go, so that at any moment, if I have a problem with Arch, I just unplug everything and plug into that machine. It's it would be probably just as broken. But we'll see. I'll run it like this for a little bit and find out what happens, I guess. I should do like Putin. Did you guys see that? Russia is going to fork Sailfish OS?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. Really great.
Yeah. Yeah. That Russia's going to. So Russia's Minister of Communication, Nikolai Nikolov or whatever, has taken to forums and consortiums and whatnot to announce Russia's plan to take a forked version of Yala's Sailfish OS to lessen its dependency on Western technology. It's a work meeting he held last week with folks from Sailfish Holdings and Yala, along with other companies and participants in the open source software domain. Russia's officials recently swapped out their iPads for Samsung tablets, switching over to Android recently, and declared that they want to invest more in open source software. And so they're going to look at how they can use open source more in private sectors, technical sectors, economic sectors, political offices, and other areas to lessen dependence on Western technology. So we could have a Sailfish OS fork soon. And speaking of Yala and Russia, watch out, Popey. The Ubuntu phone has some serious competition. The Yoda Phone 2 is up on Indiegogo this week. I mentioned this last week in Tech Talk Today. I would have talked about it in Tech Talk Today except for the Linux problems prevented me from doing the entire episode. But they are at 60 days right now on their Indiegogo campaign. They are 177% funded already. and I think they just launched it 8 hours ago. So you might wonder, why is this thing funded 177% in 8 hours? I know why. You guys know why?
Never even heard of it before.
Okay. Well, this is why you got to watch Tech Talk. Dual freaking display. Yep, exactly. E-ink on the back of this thing. E-ink, here, I'll play a little bit. This thing
What
is
if we
so
see the
cool.
world around us the wrong way?
What?
What if we are just used to a one-sided world? Feelings, dreams, hearing, seeing, love, used to one-sided freedom, one-sided communication. But what if one side is not enough? Yotaphone. The phone with two fronts.
We are so used to our smartphones that we accept the fact that we have to charge them multiple times per day. We can't see, we can't read in sunlight. It requires a lot of efforts and clicks to get access to information we need. And we thought, what if we look at the smartphone from another side? And that's how Yotaphone was born and solve all these problems. It doesn't waste battery power and legible under sunlight. All information you need is available to you just at a glance. And this screen can even act as a nice photo frame. Plus, electronic paper display doesn't hurt your eyes and it's perfect for reading. Over the last 2 years, we've developed 2 generations of Yotaphone, and now we are selling Yotaphone in more than 20 countries. This phone has won more than 20 prestigious industry awards and has been called many times as the most innovative and disruptive smartphone of the year. But we need your help to bring this innovative, disruptive smartphone to North America. So please support our Indiegogo campaign and be part of dual screen revolution with Yotaphone.
So it's interesting. I like the idea of e-ink on the back. Like, you could see how that'd be really useful for, like, reading a book, too. So, like, the Kindle app or something like that. But, Corky, you say don't trust it?
I say do trust it.
Oh, do trust it.
Well, if you look at the specs, it's what you'd expect in a normal phone. It's a Snapdragon 801, 2 gig of RAM, 1080p screen. The only difference is what you can do with the back of the phone with this e-ink display. It's not as if they're tackling 15 different new goals at once. It's simply, this is their USP, and if they get this right, it'll be an amazing phone.
So they say up to 45 hours with Yoda energy mode. Huh. Always on information on the back of the phone, like clock, temperature, notifications. You can have breaking news. You can also have your Google Fit information up on there, like your steps and maps. This is a pretty neat idea, you guys. And this is a great example of something open source phones could totally do, too. It doesn't need Android to do this. I mean, they're gonna ship it with Lollipop, but yeah, you can see why it has already gotten a lot of funding. It's a pretty neat idea. It's fun to see where these devices are going to. So that's the Yotaphone, and I don't know. I just, you look at your Sailfish and Yala. There's a lot of neat phones out there right now. Of course, the Ubuntu phone too. A lot of they just have the new Mayez phone or whatever that just went available for Chinese developers. Meizu, thank you. Meizu.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. If you're going to mention the Meizu.
Yeah, the Meizu MX4. Which and then also Rotten Corpse. Did you want to mention the Zenfone 2 that is like an x86 based phone, right?
Yeah, it's a 64-bit quad Atom, and it has 4 gigs of RAM. It's got 1080p screen. It's a dual SIM phone. It's got a ridiculous amount of hardware specs, and it costs $300 US.
Yeah, and I bet with an x86 base, there's probably a pretty good chance you'll be able to get all kinds of fun things on there.
Well, technically, it's theoretically possible, but right now the bootloader is locked.
Mm-hmm.
So
that doesn't surprise me.
XDA and some other people are working on fixing that. No, actually, it's Intel's fault, not Ace's fault.
Asus say they are going to unlock it.
Yeah, well, they're saying that Intel locked it, and they're trying to basically get a deal with Intel to let it.
Come on, Intel. You're not in a position of power in the mobile market. You should know better than that.
Also, the cheaper version is $200, 16 gigs internal storage, 2 gigs of RAM.
That one by itself is a powerful phone when it's got a price of like one of the mid-range phones.
Willie, you have bad news on benchmarks, though?
I was surprised at hearing, even though it's x86 based, the benchmarks were putting it at below, in some cases, a Snapdragon 801, which was really surprising given, just how powerful it was supposed to be.
Well, I mean, they've been working on these ARM chips in mobile specifically now for years. I got a good head start.
Well, it also depends on, like, with the 4 gigs of RAM, you can make it do a ton of things that just the RAM is handling, and the CPU can do less effort into it. And it also has like the Power VR GPU stuff, so it can like kind of manage it better. So if they're just focusing just on the CPU, then that's not really the whole package of a phone anyway.
Yeah. You know what? If we're going to talk about mobile, this is the perfect opportunity for me to take a moment here and thank our sponsor, Ting. Go to linux.ting.com, and guess what? We have a great deal until the end of June. You can get $50 off your first Ting device or a $50 service credit when you go to linux.ting.com. Now, what is Ting? Wait, what's going on here with Ting? Actually, hold on. You know who says it better than I do? I could tell you what's going on with Ting, but with an introduction like that, I'll tell you. He says,
well, wait.
I'll tell you what's going on with Ting. Ting is mobile that makes sense. Ting's my mobile service provider. I like Ting a lot because you only pay for what you use. That's way better than the duopoly that's out there right now. And when I think about changing the mobile industry and what effect I can take as a customer, there's not a lot. I don't have a lot of power. I have the need to have a phone, and I have to use the existing infrastructure. And it needs to snap in with the existing infrastructure as much as possible, as much as I've tried to work outside that system. Maybe using only Wi-Fi or something like that. No, especially not when family tries to get a hold of you. It just doesn't work that well. So this is where Ting worked well for me. It gives me the control, but it also helps me feel like maybe I'm pushing the market into a certain direction with my monthly payment, because you only pay for what you use. They just take your minutes, your messages, and your megabytes, and they add them up at the end of the month. Whatever bucket you fall into, that's what you pay. And it's just $6 for the line. That's crazy. Think about that. In fact, I think one time, from one of the big two, I think the lowest I heard, I know I've heard $35 a line before. I laughed when I heard that. I think I've even heard as low as $15 a line. And of course, they'll tell you $10 a line, but then of course they put the tax on there, and they have a couple of administrative fees, and then it really turns out to be like $17 a line. Ting's $6 a line. There's going to be taxes on there, but there's no hidden fees. There's nothing sneaky in there. If you want to, like, for example, turn on hotspot and tether, you just pay for the data usage. They have voicemail, caller ID, picture messaging, all this, they're all the regular stuff you'd expect. And they have a really fantastic system if you need support. First of all, they've got no-hold customer service. You call them at 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., and a real human being answers the phone on a weekday. That's pretty nice. They also have one of the best self-help sites out there, not only because they have a community of rabid enthusiasts that are constantly helping you out and trying new things and like pushing the envelope and pushing Ting. And Ting loves that. But they also have like subreddits, and they're on Twitter, so you can hit them up there. They have YouTube videos they're pumping out all the time that make using the Ting experience. They make the Ting experience even better. They're giving you great apps constantly. Kyra just picked this Turpin or whatever it's called, Turpin Profiler. I went, okay, I'll check this out. It's an unbelievable app. This is an unbelievable app she picks. I mean, these people are truly tuned in. Like the people they hire to do their help desks for when you call in at 1-855-TING-FTW. They were like, well, how do we make sure that if people call in, the first person they talk to can solve the problem? You hire the geek. So Ting's like, oh, well, that's what we'll do. We'll hire the geeks. And that's what they've done. And it's awesome. So they have this really great mentality to how they roll out like features in their dashboard. I don't know how much they talk about this. I don't know how much I'm even allowed to say. But their dashboard's really awesome. And they treat it like a full forward application development environment. Like they have like rollouts and phases they go through, internal testing they do. They have betas they put out. They have feature sets that, recently Ting rolled out GSM service. So they have CDMA and GSM. And that's something you have to work on over time to integrate that correctly into your management dashboard, because they've got a really great management dashboard, and it works across all range of devices, and so they're really particular about it. So their development cycle approach to how they roll out these kinds of features is like, you'd almost think that was the entire focus of the business, but they just really get how to deliver this stuff because they're backed by Tucows. And Tucows has been around since the 90s. Like they've been through the ups and downs of the internet. They've done some of the best stuff on the web. They also run Hover, right? I mean, you guys know Tucows. And so they've figured out what works and what doesn't work and how to structure these companies, and that's where Ting came from. And it's just so perfect. It's perfect for our audience. It's perfect for me. And, when you go to linux.ting.com, they've got this $50 promo right now, which is a really great device, which is a really great price. So you can get a great device like the Moto G, $91 from Ting Unlocked. And if you get our discount, it's going to be even cheaper. Or here's another great device. You can go, if you have your own device, get a SIM card. Or I really, 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 really like the Moto X2. I don't have the Moto X2. But I would seriously recommend the Moto X2. Also, another great device. If you're going to go to linux.ting.com, get the MiFi 5580. Your $50 service credit when you get this thing, you're going to get a $50 service credit. That's going to pay for that hotspot. Or go get the Moto X2 unlocked. That's a great device. That's a great service too. Linux.ting.com, and a big thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Unplugged program. You guys are rocking it. Congrats to the rollout to the GSM network. That's pretty cool. I'm really happy. Just a couple of updates from the headlines that didn't make it into Linux Action Show this Sunday. Chrome 43 is bringing better high DPI support to Linux, which is really nice because I've got my XPS 13 with the high DPI display and it drives me crazy. I have every web page zoomed in at 200% and the UI doubled and it's still too small. So high DPI support will be landing via your updates very soon. Thanks, Google. We appreciate the update. And then I wanted to talk about some of our favorite terminal applications. We had let's see, do we have any more? Oh, yes, a couple more things, and then we're going to get to the Meerkat review. And I wanted to start with a couple of our favorite terminal applications because Stormson85 wrote in. He said, so I feel cool using the terminal, and honestly, it feels more efficient half the time to boot. What are some of your most must-have or maybe most frequently used terminal applications? I've been trolling through the Arch Wiki's list of terminal apps, and I found that's a good start. Wow. I've never actually looked. The Arch Wiki has everything. I've never looked at the Arch Wiki's list of apps for the command line, but they do have a lot of stuff here. Anybody in the Mumble Room have a favorite command line app that you use all the time that's not Vim?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love HTOP and Beamon.
Oh, yeah?
Install them on every single system, including servers. Like anything you can name. Yeah. Like HTOP is process viewer the way it should be.
And Beamon is a bandwidth monitor, right?
Yeah, exactly. It has so many beautiful statistics.
Yeah, Beamon's great.
Just at the tips of your fingers. Mm-hmm. They're like, they're there for when something goes wrong and you're thinking, what's going on? Something's not right.
Yeah. One of my favorites is YouTube download, YouTube-DL, and you'd think it's just for downloading YouTube videos based on the name. But it downloads all kinds of videos. I'm not going to tell you the dirty videos it can download, but it can also download those. And it can download like Fox News video clips. It can download, it has what it does. It doesn't do everything, but it does a really good job of you give it a URL. It downloads that web page, parses the HTML, and tries to figure out the video embed, and then tries to pull the source video for that. It's not just YouTube. It's sweet. So YouTube-DL. I've made it a pick before. And look, you can, there we go. There is a list of YouTube DL supported sites, and it's a pretty good list, and a lot of them are porn. Anybody else have a, well, it is. Anybody else have a favorite app?
Well, I'm a full-time tiling window manager user, so I currently have 15 terminals open. But I'd say my favorite would be CMOS. Lots of people use NCMP, CPP as their music player, but I really like CMOS as just anything, put it there, read a music folder, start playing.
What was the
it's just amazing.
Pandora? Was it Pithos? Is that the Pandora? What's the command?
Pithos,
yeah, is that the command line Pandora client? That's a really good one. Okay, I've got a couple other my favorites, obviously. Should I even give SSH a mention, or is that too obvious? I guess I'll give it. And I'll just do an honorable mention of Vim Nano and Emacs. I think we all agree. Piano Bar, that's what it is. Piano Bar. Piano Bar. That's what it was. No, Pithos is the graphical one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can give you an example of one that's not very commonly used, but it is very useful for when you do need to check. LSHW gives you a list of all your hardware, and that is so useful when I want to check to see like what CPU and what RAM I have, or when I'm on a new computer, I need to check that.
Yeah,
I use it quite a bit, especially with like different hardware testing, and especially when you can output it to HTML and just load up in a browser. So nice.
Well, thanks to Jupiter Broadcasting, I can't remember when, I now use Inksy a lot, as my status monitor.
Yeah.
It gives you so much info.
Yeah. I'll give a nod of the hat to Wimpy because I knew about DD Rescue. In fact, I'd made it a pick on LAS even, but I just for some reason always just went to using DD when I would write an ISO image to a thumb drive. But DD Rescue is my way more preferred because you get like your transfer rate, and it just you can tell it's working. It gives you more information, and I feel like it's faster too. So DD Rescue is DD. Please, I used DD a long time ago. Now I use DD Rescue. Fortune's a good one.
I have another one that's really useful, but you got to get used to how it works. Diff. To check to see the different what's different about files. I use it all the time.
Yeah. So
what I say, other than HTOP, as I used to use HTOP, but now I use NMON. It's short for Nigel's monitor. It doesn't just monitor your real-time statistics. It has a longer term, so you can see more of like a GUI CPU monitor. It just tracks it over time, so you can see how your CPU usages are kernel or network I/O.
Great
it's
one.
all right there.
That's
it's a very
I'm installing it right now
compared to H1. It's really nice.
I just installed it right now as you said it because that's one I've heard of before. That's what I love about doing this segment with you guys. You guys will often mention ones that I know of, but MPV, yeah, Imacon is right. MPV is not only like my favorite way to watch videos, but it is, I think, the absolute best way to watch a live video stream if possible. So, for example, you take like the Jupiter Broadcasting JB Live stream. You go to jblive.tv and you right-click on the RTSP stream under the Flash player, and you just go, and once you have MPV installed, you go into your command line, you type MPV space, you paste in the RTSP stream, and you will see MPV figures out what the codec is. It sees if there's a delay between the audio and the video, and if there is a delay, it will sync that and correct that for you. And it's also aware if your network is being a little sticky and it's dropping packets, and it will start buffering ahead to accommodate for a little bit of network issues. It is such a great way to watch live video over the internet because it is such an intelligent player, MPV. So I definitely got to give that a plug if you like to watch our shows and you don't want to use Flash. Super great for that. Second plug, I've mentioned it before. These are, if you were a long time listener, you know these ones. Live Streamer. Live Streamer is great because, again, I don't like watching live shows in my browser. I love watching live shows. I don't like watching it in my browser because my browser's for doing other stuff. I come from a day when browsers crashed a lot, and so Live Streamer, what you do is, for example, you go Live Streamer and then you put in the URL of the live stream, like a Ustream page or a Twitch page, and the quality of that stream you want. And what Live Streamer will do is it will go grab that Flash encapsulated video, bundle it back up, do a local RTSP stream for you, send it to your media player like VLC, and do a local stream of that Flash player over in your computer into your VLC player, bypassing the need for you to have Flash at all. And then sending what was forced and locked into your web browser now into your VLC player, so that way you can move VLC onto your second monitor and have that your web browser like an animal. So Live Streamer is awesome. And Fish is a great shell for doing auto completion. You can also do MPV. You could throw things like, you could type MPV jblive.fm and it would just start streaming our audio feed for you. So yeah, those are great ones. Those are really good ones.
It's actually got built-in, a lot of people know it has YouTube DL support for
yeah,
MPV,
yeah.
But they've actually made it a more of a standard feature, so you don't have to put the -YT DL. You can just do with a regular MPV command and it'll work.
That's pretty nice.
Does anyone feel like we've forgotten grep?
Yeah, I mean, there are some go-tos. Like, do we list all of them? Like LS and grep and top? I mean, those are good ones too. Yeah, but grep is a good tool to learn.
What about all the great systemd commands?
Yeah, they're.
That will be.
Not to be that guy, but we could go on all freaking day, and I swear to God I didn't plan it like this, but this would be a great spot to mention Linux Academy, because if you are kind of interested in learning these tools, this is a little personal story, and this is why I think Linux Academy, even if you're like a long time Linux user, I had a little humble pie like a few years ago, and So go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged to get our discount. And this was the humble pie I experienced. Now you could have this in your privacy of your own home. I had to have this at a classroom at a community college. So I go to a community college because, you know what, work wanted me to, keep training up, keep going on. And I had no interest in learning anything about the Windows stuff. So anything Linux I could take, I was going to take that over the Windows stuff and the Microsoft stuff anytime. And they said, well, okay, we'll take a Linux Plus course. And I rolled my eyes. I said, I am your server. I converted this entire infrastructure from Novell NetWare to Windows NT to Linux. I did all of that myself. And you want me to go take a Linux Plus course? Please, right? I got a little diva. But I went because, first of all, it was ran by this guy named Grant. He goes to Linux Fest. I bumped into him every year since I took his class, which has been kind of cool. And he's a great guy. And I learned that even though I had deployed Linux hundreds of times, I had converted an entire company over to Linux. I had done massive deployments. I mean, hundreds of servers. I still needed some of the basics to be refreshed because there was ways to do what I was doing better every single day. And it's not that I was arrogant. It's just that I thought if there was a better way to do it, I had to figure it out by now, or I just hadn't thought of it in a certain way. And so when I went and took that very remedial Linux course, I had a little humble pie to realize, you know what, there is a space for me to always continue my education. And so when Linux Academy came around, I was all about that because I do not want to become stagnant. I also like to re-challenge myself from time to time. And if you are employed, if you have reviews, if you have clients, things like that, these kinds of progress are really nice. And so one of the things I've really appreciated about Linux Academy since I've signed up is it's created by people that truly love Linux. They're truly passionate about Linux, and they get the challenges you're going to face when you have to go administer Linux. And so that's, for example, like one of the reasons I've rolled out this new feature called Nuggets. They're just like single how-tos, which are a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like you want to know how to just fully exploit rsync. You really want to know how to just get the most out of top. I mean, like just these commands that if you knew a little bit better, you might get more insights out of your computer, or maybe you have better file transfers or better data integrity. So they created these nuggets. They're like anywhere between 2 and 60 minutes long, and they just deep dive into one specific thing and make you better at using that thing. Or, of course, they have entire scenario-based trainings where you're going to go deploy a server from beginning to end, where it's got the entire LAMP stack, and maybe you're caching files up on Amazon, and you're all of it, right? And they'll give you SSH access to it, and they'll spin up the lab, and you'll have 7+ distributions you get to choose from, and whatever distro you choose, the courseware adjusts to that, and the virtual machines adjust to that. This is such a neat system because they're not focused on trying to teach you how to use Adobe After Effects or how to manage Autodesk workstations or anything like that, or fix the sync. No, it's all of this stuff in Linux and open source, and they're following it so closely because they're passionate about it. So they're making sure their stuff is always current. They're rolling out new things all the time, and that's why they're also investing in open source projects. They have a $5,000 grant program that you can find out more about. Go over to linuxacademy.com/unplugged to get our 33% discount. 33%. And it's a really great resource. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. And I give them a hearty recommendation from a hard-learned lesson. You don't have to learn it the way I did. Yeah, you can do one more CLI app if you'd like. KDG, go ahead. Have at it. I don't, but are you muted? No, I don't hear you. Well, you can always leave in the comments, too. Oh, go ahead. No, I hear you. Go ahead.
SSH.
We did SSH, but yes, SSH, and not just SSH, but I think what deserves an honorable mention is like SFTP and X1114 using SSH. Like SSH itself is like an umbrella for a lot of cool stuff. So yeah, do they do an audio course? That's a good question, Dan. That's a really good question. Screen and Tmux. Another Screen is vital. For example, right now I'm using Screen because I have a Minecraft server running up on a DigitalOcean droplet, and I have Screen running all the time. rsync over SSH. Mosh, if you are connecting to a machine remotely and it's a little sticky, the connection isn't very fast, maybe your keys aren't repeating fast enough, Mosh rides on top of SSH but gives you things like local echo. So that way when you type, you see it immediately. It handles disconnects better. So if you're on spotty Wi-Fi or you're using like a MiFi hotspot and the connection's coming in and out because you're on the road, Mosh is going to handle those. Or here's another example. If you just have a laptop that you bring to work and you SSH into a machine and you put it to sleep and you go somewhere else and you want to be able to open up your machine and you can still get to that same host, Mosh will reconnect. So Mosh is really great. apt-get, yeah. All right, Rotten Corpse, you'll have our last word, and then we'll move on.
Well, in referencing to the emulation episode of this past Sunday, one of a great command line program that gives you a lot of good Nintendo 64 gaming, Mupen 64 Plus.
Yeah, yep, that was Colonel Linux's favorite. Mupen 64 Plus is awesome. So is SNEX. All right, so coming up really soon, and I'm surprised we haven't talked about it more, is Southeast Linux Fest. And ironically, it's just in time for the new 2015 Southeast Linux Fest that the crew actually got 2014's videos posted. And our very own producer, Mr. Q5Sys's talk is up about Puppy Linux and deconstruction. I'll just play a little bit. For those of you not familiar with Puppy, this is kind of a good introduction to it right here.
Puppy was designed to be very friendly. You have an old system, or someone has an old system and they just want to get online, you plug it in, you get online, you can browse the web, you can send emails. It's meant to be very, very simple to use. Now, if you want to get in and dig into it, you're going to need some skill levels above just a random user because of how everything is actually done. But for just standard user computer actions, we want it to be as easy as possible. Like I said, it will run extraordinarily fast. The primary reason from this is because it runs from RAM. And we'll touch on that in just a moment.
Nice.
We'll have all the applications needed for daily use. These are the typical things like a document writer, a spreadsheet. So you can send emails, you can play music, you can watch movies. The versions of the programs that we use and the actual versions of programs that we use are sometimes not the ones you're familiar with. The reason we've chosen those is because we're looking to keep the size as minimal as possible. Right now, the latest official release of Puppy, the entire OS, GUI, and all applications is about 140 megabytes.
Wow. So the whole video is up. It's about 54 minutes long, and it just went up, and we'll have a link in the show notes. And if you'd like to meet Mr. Q5Sys or Colonel Linux or Rotten, are you going to go to Self?
I'm planning on it, but I haven't.
Yeah.
It's not confirmed yet.
So I'll get to that in a second. But so Southeast Linux Fest, I'm told by the crew, one of the great Linux Fests put on every single year, is going on June 12th through the 14th, 2015, at the Sheraton at the Sheraton at the Charlotte Airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, you got that? It's June 12th through the 14th at the Sheraton Charlotte Airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. It makes it really easy. And actually, to make it even easier for you guys, I set up a meetup at meetup.com/JupiterBroadcasting with all of the address and the bits of information you need to know, including they have limited hotel rooms still available as part of the Self block. And if you get that means you're going to get a free shuttle to and from the international airport. And you're going to get the special $99 room rate, and you'll also get free internet in the room. So you need to book if you haven't booked yet for Southeast Linux Fest because they've reopened just a few more rooms on the block. They'd sold out and they got a few more. We set up the meetup. You can go to meetup.com/JupiterBroadcasting. You'll find it there. I also have it linked directly in the show notes. If you'd like to meet up with the crew, they're going to be down there. Unfortunately, I had intended to go, but we sort of overextended ourselves to make Linux Fest Northwest possible. And so I can't afford to send myself to Linux Fest, to Southeast Linux Fest. I'm major bummed because it's one that I've been wanting to go to for a couple of years. But we'll have the guys there, and they'll be doing live coverage, and I'll be in studio, I suppose. And so that I will still have great coverage. I am a little bummed because I really wanted to go, but it doesn't affect our coverage of the event. And you can still meet up with perhaps producer Rotten Corpse, Colonel Linux, and Q5Sys are going for sure. And it should be, I'm told, one of the best events of the year. And it's really pretty convenient if you get on that block because you fly in there, they shuttle you right to the fest. It's pretty straightforward, and you can sleep. And the fest is at the hotel, so you don't have to travel. And then the guys just go out and get food and stuff. And there's some great places to eat nearby. So, gosh, it should be a heck of a time. It makes me, man, So I think next year we sort of assessed how we'll do Linux Fest so that way we can afford to do some of these other things. We have other events coming up too. That's the other reason. Is because OSCON is just around the corner, and I'm going to that very soon. So there's a couple other events that they all back up really close to each other. I would love to go to Self, so hopefully we'll be able to pace ourselves for Linux Fest Northwest next year, and then I can go to self. Kind of a hard lesson to learn, but well, now we know. BSDCan was also I was hoping to go to BSDCan, but my passport still hasn't come through at this point, and it's getting too close. So yeah, but you guys can still go, and then tell me all about it. Make me super jelly. And go to meetup.com/JupiterBroadcasting to get more on that. And Rotten Corpse, I hope you can make it. That'd be really cool, because I'm told it's a crazy party.
The thing that annoyed me is like before I even knew it existed, they had went to Atlanta, and then the year after that, they started going to Charlotte just consistently.
Yeah.
So the one that was actually close to me was the one I didn't even know was happening.
That'd have been nice, huh? Go figure. Well, that's how it goes. I've always been tempted to go, but it wasn't until the guys had gone for a couple years in a row. Like, yeah, so it's one thing like you hear a good party, but then you go to all of them. And then you really get an idea of which ones are the good parties. And the guys that go to all of them say this is one of the best parties out there. So that's pretty cool. All right, we're going to get into the Meerkat review. System76 is not a sponsor of Linux Unplugged. And I would still do the review in the Linux Action Show, but we actually have 2 weeks booked solid on Linux Action Show of really great guests, and so it doesn't really quite fit into our schedule. And I've been using the Meerkat on and off in production, so my experiences are fresh right now. System76 has released this ultra compact. It's a i5 or i3 based rig. You can put up to 2.5 terabytes of disk in it because it can actually fit 2 disks in this tiny little thing. It's smaller than a Mac Mini. It's based, I think, on the NUC platform is essentially what the original platform is based on. And then System76 has done design work and firmware work and drivers work to sort of differentiate it from the rest of the market. I'll get to that here in a moment. But to give you a general sense, in production, we've used this up at Linux Fest Northwest to drive a couple of displays and do our 24/7 playback that we had while we had the booth assembled. And then now today, it's actually in studio driving all of our remote audio. And I'm going to get into more of that in a moment, give you my experiences with the NUC platform and specifically with the System76 Meerkat. And in fact, something I don't normally talk about in these reviews, but I want to in this review, is the complete out-of-box experience, because System76 has done something unique with the Meerkat that I've never seen them do with their previous products. So I think it deserves a mention. So before we get to that, I'll give our last sponsor this week a mention, because these guys are making my life so much easier, and they can make your lives a lot better too in a lot of different ways. It's DigitalOcean, and DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider that's dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up your own cloud server. And that sounds like some mumbo jumbo. I'll grant you that. In fact, it took me about 3 years to even be able to cope with the word cloud and not shudder. I'm there now. Thankfully, it took some counseling. But the reason why I get through that line is it's so accurate. It's exactly what you get. You get a badass, super fast Linux computer up on a server that has been built by experts to be as fast as possible and as easy to manage and easy to deploy applications on as you could possibly conceive. And I just, like, I guess I could say that every time, but that's a little more clunky than they are a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. Legitimately, that's DigitalOcean. And if that for you means your entire back-end infrastructure, they can do that. If that for you means you need to rent a server for 2 hours while you test something, they can do that. You can deploy everything on their rigs with their SSD-based technology. It doesn't matter which package you pick, it's all SSDs top to bottom, every single machine. That means you're going to get super great I/O. You're not going to need a big old disk array that's like fiber attached or SCSI attached or iSCSI with, it's so much nicer with SSDs today. And this is where DigitalOcean sort of stacked the deck. Is, I would say, when they started out, betting on KVM was kind of risky, but pretty obvious it was trending that way if you really followed the market. And DigitalOcean does. I mean, the people that work for DO are like the top of the field. That probably to them wasn't a big revelation. KVM is going to be a fantastic virtualizer. I mean, because this is like, granted, this is a while ago, right? So yeah, okay, they made that bet. Linux, again, kind of the same thing. Bit of a bet back then for infrastructure on a cloud device, but kind of seemed like where the market was going. Pretty clear by that point. It was going to be Linux. KVM, not so clear. Maybe Zen, right? Could have been Zen, could have been QEMU, could have been something else. But Linux, that seemed pretty obvious. I think where they actually went out on a limb pretty big was SSDs. because the SSDs the jury is still only recently gotten in on that. That was a huge cost outlay for them. That was a huge cost outlay for them to also then try to make the service so frickin' valuable in cost. And because they decided we need Linux, we need tier 1 bandwidth, we need the best disk I/O possible. When they stacked the deck that way, then all they had to do was seal the deal. So that's what they did. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start at only $5 a month. That seals the deal right there. For $5 a month, you're going to get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. Right, just dedicated to you. You get a terabyte of transfer. I love that. I love that because I pay for transfer. So when I'm setting up a DigitalOcean drop, I'm like, and I have one that has Minecraft on there, and I think I get like 4 terabytes of transfer or something like that. I was like, okay, fine. Yeah, have at it. Let me just throw the transmission web UI on there too. And they got data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, and a brand new spanking data center in Germany that's connected right on the internet exchange over there. So all Germany's neighbors get unparalleled access. I mean, you're going to look like a boss when you spin up a droplet over there. But that interface is so slick. I mean, it's very intuitive. So you're going to be able to do a lot of things that normally you would have thought to manage on a virtual server would have required a degree. And it's so nice because you can also replicate all of that functionality with their straightforward API. And you can integrate that in with your applications, your management infrastructure. You can take advantage of all of the great applications. When you go to DigitalOcean, check out some of their community apps. There's a lot of good stuff. And remember, you can try all this out 2 months for free when you use our promo code DO Unplugged. DO Unplugged will get you a $10 credit. You try out the $5 rig for free. And DigitalOcean is hiring too. They need writers. They're looking for people to submit articles for their tutorial section. They're opening that back up again. Go over to DigitalOcean and check out their careers section. They're specifically looking for Linux sysadmins. They're a growing company. They need tutorials. They need copyright editors. They need Linux sysadmins. They specifically told me to tell you guys that because they know you guys are the super savvy audience that they want to hire. And they get this stuff. They've asked me to tell you that because they want to hire you guys specifically, and gals, because they know that Jupiter Broadcasting has one of the best audiences out there. So go over there, try out DigitalOcean for a little while. If you need a gig, look them up. They got positions open. They specifically wanted me to mention the content editing position and the Linux staff positions. You guys, when they opened up those positions before, they were filled by JB community members. I think they can be done again. So go over to DigitalOcean, use the promo code DO Unplugged. That supports this show, but also gives you that $10 credit. You can try out the $5 rig 2 months for free. And if you're looking for a job and you're in their area, check out their careers page too. And if you can write some tutorials, you might be able to make some money. They are really serious about having the best tutorials on the web. And so if you're a really good writer, you might want to contact them and work. There's a lot of great opportunity over there. And they have great tutorials too. And they put those content editors on there. DigitalOcean.com, DO Unplugged. Check them out. They're a really great service. Okay, so back to the Meerkat. So you guys are talking to me right now on the Meerkat, and that's not too shocking, I suppose. But the question I really had is, could a system this small, could it do something very intensive? And I'll tell you what I've ran into from a performance standpoint is it's going to depend if you get the i3 or i5, but we've been able to do 720p live video streamed on it without any issues. It has the Intel Iris graphics in there, and so you get essentially and we're pushing a 1080p resolution, a mirrored 1080p resolution, and we're able to get full 30 frames to 60 frames per second on our HD video calls. The system doesn't get hot. It doesn't kick up a fan noise. It does have a fan, but it's pretty quiet. It's actually not it's not audible by our microphones in the studio. So what really sort of struck me about the Meerkat machine itself is while it's both extremely capable, it's also very, very limited. So I feel like it's like I could say right off the top of this review, I can recommend this machine if gaming isn't a huge component of what you do. Like you can do some gaming like Race the Sun and things like that, but you're not going to get much beyond that. That said, that's a lot of you, because what you do get is you get an i5 processor. You can put up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is pretty competitive. But what really does it for me is that you can have 2 disks in this tiny frickin' computer. You can have the standard M SATA, and then it can also fit a 2.5 inch on the bottom drive. I think it's a 2.5. I actually didn't double check it. And you can mount it right on the back of your monitor. It's got gigabit Ethernet. It's got 4 USB 3.0 ports. It's DisplayPort out and HDMI. And then it has a combo audio jack. And it's got the Intel 5500, by the way. So that's no slouch. 2 disks in this tiny little nearly silent Linux workstation that can drive 2 monitors. If you have DisplayPort and mini HDMI, if you have monitors that can take that and you can get cables that both of those go to DisplayPort, this tiny little machine can drive 2 displays, and it is wicked fast because all of the storage is SSD based. So it's a pretty compelling. The price is a little more than if you were to build it yourself, but if you bought like Crucial RAM and you bought Samsung SSDs, like you got all good parts, and then you also provided a warranty to it yourself, I think it's kind of a wash on the price. But as far as performance goes, it's really hard to describe how impressively fast this thing is. It is deceivingly fast. If you make a few tweaks to the GNOME environment to work better with the Intel graphics, it's breathtaking. It's just like it boots in about 4 seconds, and I'm not exaggerating at all. Applications open instantly. There's no waiting. Now, more of my performance review is based on my experience under Arch than it is under Ubuntu. And I did have a couple of problems where one time when I powered it up, it said it couldn't find a boot device, but I'm not actually sure what all was involved there because Rikai was able to fix that in about 30 seconds. And one of the things that he kind of clued me into is if you have a Linux rig that you're setting up that has UEFI, he recommends, and I've been reading about a software package, you guys are probably familiar with it in the Mumble Room, called Gummy Boot, which is really just a simple UEFI boot manager that you use instead of Grub. And so we're using this Meerkat with Gummy Boot and Antergos. And it shipped with Ubuntu, and that worked fine. But truth be told, that installation needed to be rebuilt because we let a BSD user manage it. I'm not going to go into more details than that. But anyways, so I needed to reload it, and it's been great. I read reviews online. People say they can use Windows 10 with it as well. I have not tried Windows 10. And if you're watching the video version right now, I'm showing you a picture of what the insides look like. It's surprisingly serviceable. The lid comes off, and you've got 3 slots for RAM. You've got the slot for the storage, and then the machine flips over, and there's a bunch of stuff on the bottom you can change out, like the drive, like the second drive, and things like that. It's a pretty neat little rig. Does anybody in Mumble Room, do you guys have any questions about the System76 Meerkat?
Other than the price.
Yeah, so the price, like I was just let's take a look at it here. So let's design and buy a System76 Meerkat. And I would go with a 2.7 gigahertz processor. I would go with 16 gigabytes of RAM. I would go with a 250 gigabyte solid state drive. And then I like the options. See, one of the things they'll let you do here is you can go for your second drive, if you just want storage, you could go with a spinning drive. But I don't know. I guess if we're trying to work on price, maybe I won't pick a second drive. But I like the option. I mean, to me, that makes this thing really nice, really compelling. I won't do a monitor or speakers, and I already have a keyboard and mouse, and I can stick with the year warranty. Now they're going to give you lifetime support of the Ubuntu installation, so that's not bad. And that's $878. And if you were to, and I did this kind of earlier, if I did that same rig on Amazon, I think it comes out to be $140 cheaper or $180 cheaper, depending on which RAM and CPU I get. Is $180 really? That's not worth it to me. Because if I order this, and again, this is not a sponsored segment. They're not paying me to say this at all. In fact, if anything, they would probably prefer I say this in last because it has a larger audience. But truth be told, I think the value here is you spend $150, $180, even if it was $200, really. They pre-assemble it, they warranty it, and they ship it to you. That's just those things right there. And we've built 2 NUCs in studio, and one NUC that first installation didn't go so well. That first NUC, if you just get any of like you get the wrong RAM voltage or wrong timing, and like it just it doesn't work, and so it's kind of a bummer because we got the first NUC. I think the voltage of the RAM was off by just a tiny amount. I can't even remember what it was. It was a package too. It was a package I bought off Amazon, and they shipped it with the wrong RAM, and I got burned. And we built the whole system. We got it all set up, ready to go. Hit the button, nothing happens. And it's a major letdown because now you wait another 3 days while you go realize, oh, I bought the wrong RAM. I get the right RAM shipped, and I send back the old RAM, and then and when you're sitting here in a business and you want to get a machine in place because you need to replace something, that 3-day delay was a major pain in the butt. For some of us, it'd be worth $180 to have somebody assemble it, test it, support it, and ship it, especially for a business. Rikai says, by the way, it was 1.5 volt voltage RAM instead of 1.65, or the other way around. And I find it to be, on paper, an interesting device. I find it, once I actually have it in hand, to be a compelling device. I think the size is a big part of that. Corky, what do you think?
Well, I think the size is a massive part. If there are so many use cases that don't need massive graphics capability. And if you start deploying these in bulk, it could make a massive difference, for Linux, because when you take these kind of devices and you deploy them as thin clients or dev machines or something, and they run Linux perfectly because of open source graphics drivers, solid build qualities, they're a real showcase for Linux's power.
Yeah, and it's been one of those things where I showed some people at the Linux Fest and they're like, that's the whole computer. That was their reaction. Like, that's the computer. That's not the power supply. No, that's the whole computer. I've been told they run Windows really well. I can confirm they do run Mac OS very well. And that's the beautiful thing about this, is it's all Intel parts. And so if your operating system supports Intel wireless or Intel Intel NICs, Intel processors, Intel chipsets, if your operating system supports that, it's going to work. And so that's Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. And in the case of Linux, it means everything is supported by the kernel out of the box. Well, HDMI mirroring, audio out of the HDMI port, all of it. Every distribution, every single distribution that ships with like a Linux kernel 3.3 or newer works out of the box. And so that, to me, makes this machine the perfect Linux workstation for a distro hopper.
Well, that's just it. It's what it does. It has very few compromises, very few things that you could switch out or make better, which will probably be improved in time. It may end up with the same user base as ThinkPads, people who want things that do it perfectly.
That's an interesting,
but for a limited set of users. And for Linux, that's meant that ThinkPads are amazing for Linux support because they've got that crowd of people who think they're perfect machines.
And you look at the trajectory and the slow but steady improvement of the Intel graphics. I could see maybe a year or two from now where the NUC type hardware is very capable for gaming. Not of course, standalone graphics isn't going to stand still either. But I agree. It's not only very capable if you have. I think it's capable if you have moderate graphics usage, and that's with like heavy workloads too. Like I'm telling you, like we've thrown some serious CPU work at it. It's not an i7, so you have to come in. You have to come at. I came at it with an abundance of caution, thinking maybe I set my expectations too low, thinking you just can't have a powerful workstation in a computer this small. But after a couple of hours of tweaking the Intel driver and after a couple of hours of just setting up the software, I could already tell it was a great system. And so we've been using it now for 2-3 weeks And I mean, it's just like, okay, let's stick it over here, do this for a little bit. Stick it over here, do this for a little bit. And then this morning, when I had to replace the machine running Mumble, because the Ubuntu updates had just destroyed that, we just put it in. We just put this machine right in its place, and it's just taken right over the role, and it's working really well. And it makes it very, very nice to say, this is a really easy installation. And if somebody were to come to me today and say, hey, I'd like to buy a Linux rig, I feel like this is one I could recommend to them and know that even if they ended up having to reload it themselves, they're not going to run into problems. And then like the nice thing about the Meerkat is where there are rough edges, System76 kind of rubbed those down nice to a little smooth round edge, and they're not that sharp. And I mean, I think you could get most of the way there if you built the NUC yourself, and then they've come in with the Meerkat and sort of finished it off. And so for me, I'd say I'm just gonna, like, if I need a device like this, I'm just gonna buy a Meerkat now. Maybe you can make your own decision. And for people that I recommend, people that I think want a new computer, this is the machine I'm gonna tell them to buy. If I say, do you play games, and they say no, this is the machine I'm going to tell them to buy. It's because it starts at $499, first of all, and not everybody needs an i5 with 16 gigs of RAM. Some people are going to be fine with an i3 and 8 gigs of RAM or whatever, and so for them, they can get it at a lower price point. Just because of me, I'm going to use it in production, so I got to have an i5, I got to have 16 gigs, blah blah blah. But $499 is actually the starting price for this thing. That's not so bad. I think the only criticism I would give System76 for this is they should have done it sooner. And also there are packages out there by folks like Gigabyte that have an i7, but I've read those have heating issues. So I think it's nice that they're sticking them closer to the main line. And I know why they didn't do it sooner. I know that they didn't feel like it was ready to ship sooner. I wish I didn't have to buy. I bought 2 other Intel NUCs, and I would rather buy these System76 Meerkats because it's a more complete package. It feels like a product, whereas the NUC kind of feels like a spec car that I'm putting together that works out pretty good, but it definitely feels like a spec car, and it feels like it has rough edges that a shipped product doesn't have. And then the other nice thing about the Meerkat is it ships in some super badass packaging. System76 has a really great box that they put it in with some great designs in it, and they ship it with a better power adapter than the regular kit. So that's nice too. So they've improved that area as well. So it's a great rig if you need like a development machine, or if you need something to do web browsing or mail, or you need an office system. And what I really like about it for the office environment is it comes with the Visa plate. So you can just mount it to the back of a monitor. It comes with the plate. At least my demo model did. And I think they all do. So that's really cool too. I really like that. Anyways, any other questions about the NUC or the Meerkat in general, or the performance, or any of that stuff? It's been interesting to compare the Meerkat to the straight line NUCs side by side, and because I was pretty skeptical. And like, what's the difference, really? And I'd say there's enough of a difference, and just the convenience and the support, that I think they have something here. And then especially when they're selling directly to consumers.
Okay, how well does that perform with KDE?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have a lot of experience, but I have similar experience under like a similar CPU and video card. And it's fantastic. It's the Iris 5500. You can play Borderlands 2, the pre-sequel, using that graphics card. Like, it is a fully capable. Now, I'm not saying it's gonna be high settings. It's gonna be like 30 frames a second. Well, they're 40 frames a second, but you can frickin' play Borderlands, the pre-sequel, on the Iris graphics. The only time
I have a massive laptop that has like quad core, i5, and like 8 gigs of RAM. It can't play Borderlands 2.
And, the only thing is the Iris graphics is not up to the task of high DPI. That's where it falls down. So, of course, that's what the XPS has in it. But if you hook this up to a 1080p display, or even like a 2K display, it's going to be fine. It's going to do just fine. And it's going to look really good. That's a good question. And I'll do some more gaming tests on it now that we have it hooked up here in the studio. Because I have not thrown like a... One of the ones I never get from I get different, when I do hardware and distro reviews, I get one set of questions from the live audience, totally different set of questions from the download audience. And the download audience often wants to know about Dota 2. They often want to know how Dota 2 runs. And I don't think any of you guys have ever once asked me how Dota 2 runs. But so that's something I'll try. I'll try Dota 2. I'll try some games. I'll do that, and then I'll report back. But we just reloaded it, so I got to get Steam installed and get the multi-lib and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the Meerkat from System76. I give it a thumbs up. And I wonder if they'll let me hang on to it for a little while. And if you're gonna do your own like Arch load, or it comes with Ubuntu, and it really, that's a nice package. Their Ubuntu installation is pre-set up with their System76 software package, so you can go get latest updates from the System76 repo, and it's ready to go out of the box. If you want to put another distro on there, it looks like Gummy Boot is a good way to go if you want to keep UEFI. Or maybe if you have your own UEFI rig at home, Gummy Boot is worth checking out. It made the installation process a little bit smoother. And it's also the way Arch is pushing for those of you that are Arch users. And I'll also have linked in the show notes a write-up that Beta News did where they reviewed the Meerkat, and they liked it as well. And he did a teardown a little bit of the internals, which is pretty cool. I thought that was a good one. All right, one last plug before we run. Don't forget about that meetup, meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. If you're going to be at Self, we'd like to see that. And don't use the hashtag Self. That's something else completely, which you will find out the hard way if you use that. And then last but not least, send in your Runs Linux picks. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and choose Linux Action Show from the dropdown. And send in your Runs Linux, like pictures of your setup or a video of a cool thing or whatever. We love doing the Runs Linux picks from the audience. And last but also not least, jblive.tv to tune into the show live and join us in our virtual lug and hang out with us. We do this show on Tuesdays, and jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar has it in your local time zone. But when you hang out in the Mumble Room, you get to interact with us live and give us a hard time if we do something stupid right here. You can call us out on it. But also, we have pre- and post-show where we like to hang out and chat with you guys. And then you can also always engage. Oh, hi there. Hi. That just came in right in there. At linuxactionshow.reddit.com. Send in your feedback, leave comments, stories, things like that. It's always good times over at the subreddit, and then that helps make a better show. And we'll follow up with that. And I'll also try to follow up on the Meerkat gaming stuff. And if you have any questions about that, linuxactionshow.reddit.com in the Linux Unplugged feedback thread, put your Meerkat questions in there, and I'll try to collect some of those and do follow-ups in next week's episode of Linux Unplugged. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for tuning to episode 93 of the Linux Unplugged program. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday.